Thank you all so much. I feel like this is a family gathering I just came into, and I would like David to adopt me, please. I need a new grandparent, if you wouldn't mind. Oh, great. Awesome. Let's see if that works. We'll see if we agree on policy by the end of the night. Thank you all so much, and thank you, Janine, for this honor. Again, my name is Camila Thorndike, and I coordinate the carbon pricing campaign with CCAN. Raise your hand if you've heard of CCAN before. Awesome. So we've been working for 15 years in this region, DC, Maryland, and Virginia. And I don't know if you can all see this text. I'm going to do my best to explain it. But how I got here was growing up in Southern Oregon. My mother, who's Chilean, where they have a carbon tax, started the first organic flower farm on the West Coast. And so my sister and I grew up in the fields, and she went organic because she wanted us to be surrounded by beauty and free from toxins, and the same for consumers in our community. And in 6th grade is when I learned about the greenhouse gas effect and started looking at that famous hockey stick graph, and plotting my own lifetime to it, and realizing that right around this age that I'm at, when I would decide whether or not to have kids and huge decisions that impact generations, was when that temperature and that pollution point would start to really take off. And it's been very eerie to see that really become so evident, especially this year. And so a few years later, when it was the Bush v. Gore election, it was the first time that I'd ever prayed. And when my prayers weren't answered, I realized that that this was going to be up to us, to people in my generation, to fix. And as much as my mother would love to, keep the hills from burning and the extreme weather from ravaging our community, she couldn't do it alone, and I couldn't do it alone, and we'd have to do it together. So 80% of millennials want climate action, and we understand that it has to be collective, it has to be government action. And the question is sort of, what is it, right? How can we actually pool our energies, and what are we asking for? And what we're seeing is a growing movement of people who want to hold polluters accountable and phase out fossil fuels through a mandate of another means, which is taxing it to the point where it's no longer the preferred energy source. And in creating this movement for carbon pricing, I really see in the 17 states where we're working now a movement to really restore civic life and defend this very imperiled democracy of ours. So this is a chart that now I see nobody's going to be able to read. It's really why carbon pricing is uniquely powerful. So 1965 to 2010, there's a number of lines on this graph. The green is renewable energy right there at the bottom. This is global energy consumption. Purple is nuclear and hydro energy, and the red is fossil fuels. So there's two things that I take from this graph, knowing that the energy economy we're dealing with is vast and complex, and if we don't look at the data and we don't look at history, then we don't know what's going to work, and we don't have time to just guess. One, fossil fuel consumption is going up, and it's going up at an accelerating rate. As much as we hear the success stories of clean energy, they're very small compared to what we're up against. And the second point that I take away that's not so depressing is that we actually see it go down at different points in history. And those are, first, the 1973 oil crisis and the 1979 energy crisis, and then lastly here, the 2008 Great Recession, right? So in those first crises, we had oil prices spike. We had Carter and his sweater and the White House solar panels and the creation of the Department of Energy. And then with the Great Recession, it wasn't energy prices going up, but it was consumer purchasing power going down. So both of these points are when energy prices change in some way. Prices, purchasing, that leads us to taxes. So we have a known cause and effect that we can apply to solve the climate crisis, but we can do it actually in a more thoughtful way than these disruptive events in history. So that is actually putting a price on carbon intentionally, right? And thinking about who benefits and who loses. You can do that with a carbon fee or a carbon tax, or you can do it with cap and trade. Both you can design to make sure that the true cost of fossil fuels are actually reflected in their price. That's the point. You internalize the externality. Right now we're all being externalized, and the true cost of fossil fuels are costing us hundreds of billions of dollars every year and only going up. So that's why we have economists across the political spectrum agreeing for my whole lifetime that this is the most effective solution. It has three main outcomes I want to leave you with. First, when companies have to pay to pollute, they actually look for alternatives and they turn off the lights and they try to save energy, right? If it hurts, you're going to change. The second is that this policy levels the playing field for clean energy. It gives clean energy a chance to compete. The tax bill that may have already passed in the time that we've been here leaves fossil fuels subsidized 7-1 to renewables. This policy starts to eat into that those subsidies and level the playing field, as I said. The third is that this is the only energy policy that generates revenue. Each time you change energy prices, it's going to have either a progressive effect or a regressive effect. Carbon price makes money that can be distributed back to consumers so that this is a progressive policy that leaves people better off than they were before. Again, unlike those energy crises, you generate money, you can leave middle and lower income households better off than they were before by returning it in the form of a rebate or a dividend. So that all makes sense, but how do we make it fun? So this is the beginning of my journey on this policy in 2013 in Southern Oregon. We got 1,400 people in the Rogue Valley where I grew up to each decorate a cardboard cutout of a house, and it, with why they love Oregon, why they love that valley, and what scares them about climate change. And we got together in Medford, Oregon, which is a very industrial town, for the largest environmental event that had ever taken place. And we took this salmon, kind of symbol of the Pacific Northwest, up to Salem, the capital, and launched a statewide carbon pricing movement asking for the solution by name. And that has now led to this movement across 17 states of young people demanding the solution, going to their lawmakers' offices, educating their peers, passing resolutions on campuses and in their communities. We are not alone in that. So this graph shows the growth of carbon pricing policies over the years, and what you'll see is almost a quarter of global pollution is now priced. We need to catch up. The United States, as we know, is lagging far, far behind, although the regional greenhouse gas initiative is growing to hopefully soon include Virginia. DC, where I live and work, needs to pass a fee on carbon if we're going to get there. So that's where I want to leave you with tonight, is that on your chairs, you have a chance to bring this to the City Council in 2018. There's a petition. If you live in Virginia or Maryland, sign the blue one. If you live in DC, sign the green one. There's fact sheets on your chair. We have been building this campaign to hold polluters accountable, boost clean energy, and increase the incomes of middle and low income households in the District of Columbia for the last 2 years. Now we have almost 50 businesses, nonprofits, unions, community organizations, and neighbors allied to pass this in 2018, right under Trump's nose, whether or not he wants it. There's going to be carbon priced electricity sent to the White House. And so what we really need is your support in this campaign. We really need people who are willing to lobby our council members to endorse, if you have a business or an organization, to take the polar bear plunge with us in January. Raise your hand if you know the plunge. We run into the bay. Yes, some of us are doing it. You can have your own campaign page, or you can donate to mine or Robert's or whoever else is in here. And we hope that you'll support this campaign. I'll leave you with one story about that civic life restoration. The chairman of the council, Phil Mendelson, has been in the council for almost 20 years now. And he told us at the end of this summer that he's never seen so much constituent pressure for a policy before a bill is even introduced. They are getting calls about this every single day, to the point where he and the chair of the committee that we need to pass this through are saying, we're going to get this done. So we're going to get this done in 2018, and we're going to be the first jurisdiction in the country to have a carbon fee and have those rebates of hundreds of dollars, thousands eventually, going back to every DC household. Washington Post has endorsed. We've got positive jobs and GDP growth coming, and we really just need your help to win. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much.